Bolts of plasma and laser fire darted across the void of space above one of our colony worlds as our grand fleet fought hard to defend an Alliance colony world. A minor civil war within the Taranian Imperium resulting in a full-blown galactic conflict. If an ally of the Eridani were not directly on their doorstep, this would be quite enlightening to see. I have always hated war. Maybe that's why humans make me so angry, or nervous, or whatever those emotions are. I looked at my fleet admiral who was concentrating so heavily on tactical readouts, ordering retreats for badly damaged ships, trying to flank the enemy fleet or becoming angry when an attempted surprise attack failed. Space combat is slow, lumbering. With ships in the several hundreds of thousands of tons each, space combat can last weeks with enough ships. And here, the gateway to the core, there were thousands. If I wasn't so scared, I would be in awe at the sheer numbers of warships present. The Taranian Imperium were secretly building thousands of warships behind the scenes for decades. Now they were unleashing all of it here. A bright flash of light towards the fleet's front line marks the final moments of a Eridani battlecruiser. The fleet admiral's tone grows more desperate, more calculated. We have assembled every council warship we could find in short notice, some of the best in fact, but the sheer volume of enemy fire is overwhelming us. Every Taranian ship we destroy is replaced by 3 more. Everybody knows it. We can't hold for much longer. I look at the fleet admiral who responds in kind. The expression on his face says everything. We won't win this fight. My Lord Admiral, capital-class starship incoming. Reactor signatures say it's a human warship. One of the crew yelled out from his pulpit on the bridge. Humans, they aren't a part of this conflict. They aren't even on the council. What are they doing here? The Admiral barked out in anger. Too late to say anything about it. A human warship suddenly decelerated into the system. Fur suddenly stood on end. Paw pads began to copiously sweat. Spines began to rattle. Jaws hit the floor. Ink stained the walls. Brains suddenly stopped working. The ship that warped into the system was a massive mega-beast many times the size of our largest dreadnought. It flew with the speed of a large cruiser and quickly logged itself into our IFF system. It was beyond absurd how many weapons were coating that thing's hull. It was a ship design I recognized, however. It was the shape of I believe the ship's name was a Venator-class cruiser, although very highly modified, of course. When working with humans, I was required to visit many of their works of fiction in order to understand their mindset. I never did understand, of course, but the so-called Star Wars universe was an entertaining piece of media. The Admiral was happy about the reinforcements and quickly rallied his forces together, transmitting the necessary files to the humans after registering them with our ident system. I took a good look at that ship. Then I held my head in my hands out of sheer despair. Oh gods, no, gods, why? They're going to fire that damn thing? I yelled aloud in absolute despair. The Admiral looked at me quizzically. What are you talking about? They're here to help us. Be thankful. I could not say anything except let out a loud cry of frustrated despair and slap my head with the palm of my hands, repeatedly screaming, Why? As I did. The Admiral called for a medical crew as I dropped to my knees and began to pray fervently that the Taranian Empire would surrender as fast as possible. I begged and pleaded to whatever god could hear me to get through to the damn humans and ask them to not continue. It was too late. The large black paint-coated warship stood out of the firing range of the Taranian fleet and aimed its front end at the enemy. The ship began to defend itself from errant laser and missile fire. One of its huge battleship cannon turrets mounted on the top, swatting a battlecruiser out of the sky like an insignificant insect. Any enemy ship foolish enough to think it stands a chance is vaporized by any one of 100 capital ship weapons or overpowered high-velocity point defense turrets. The engines of the ship lit up like a massive firestorm as the reactor inside it roared to life. The ship's trim exterior and massive amounts of internal piping suddenly became visible like rivers of ghostly neon flickering and flowing across its hull. A wave of energy coalesced around the ship, flowing through the pipes and cables across its massive hull, all converging towards a central point under the bridge. The spinal-mounted cannon that easily took up half of the ship's near 10-kilometer length marked the presence of a massive railgun array of some kind. I became a bit sick to my stomach on the notion of how large a slug would be used in that thing, and having seen human weaponry before, I began to vomit profusely. The giant Garand, the giant MG-42, the giant CIWS. And now this, the entirety of space, the literal void itself suddenly warped as if an eldritch demon screamed in agony as the weapon fired. In my agitated state, my mind slowed such that I could literally see the blistering tendrils of a beast of the unknown reaching out in agony toward the universe. The gun fired, and the void itself seemed to shudder at the action. The speed that rail slug was fired defied the very laws of nature itself, warping the very fabric of reality around it within a split millisecond. It blew past the entire fleet, straight through the formation, and for a few short moments there was nothing. The wave of death suddenly began in parts. Any ship within 5 kilometers of the slug's passage through reality suffered being torn apart, being ripped to pieces or being pixelated into oblivion, then disintegrating. Any ship within the 5 to 15 kilometer range suffered catastrophic malfunctions and engine failures, turrets detonating, reactors exploding, ship hulls warping to catastrophic failure, or other ships simply ceasing to function owing to disastrous EMP overload. Any ship within 15 to 50 kilometers escaped complete destruction but suffered severe hull breaches, reactor malfunctions, or severe electronic disruption. A bright, blinding flash microseconds later marked the end of the slug's existence as a void pulse sent it out of the universe, disintegrating it among the cosmic dust of the universe so it would trouble no one after its deadly journey. Half of the Taranian fleet was damaged, destroyed, or simply gone. This entire sequence took less than 7 seconds to complete. 7 damned seconds. I shoved the medical crew out of my way and pulled the poor unfortunate communications officer out of his seat. I sat down, grabbing the headset, still in tears from a massive mixture of emotions, from frustration and despair to outright terrified fear. I opened every comms channel I could find and began to desperately scream a message. "Humans, please listen, please, we surrender, we will do anything, anything. Please just stop making giant guns," I pleaded into the radio. I continued to beg and plead, repeating this same message for as long as I could before I passed out from exhaustion. Many days later, pretty much half the galaxy was in negotiations with the humans, threatening sanctions and other things, or outright begging them to stop their crazy antics. The Saranai, on the other hand, were all in temples in drug-addled sermons, begging whatever gods we could find to explain to us why they created humans. The only answer we ever got was psychotic laughter. Just endless, happy, giggling, psychotic laughing.